Okay. Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to
Your
the
mic's not on,
finance
John.
meeting.
Okay, that'd be good because
Your
we're
mic's
getting
not on,
hooked
John.
up with.
I think my mic's, is the mic on? Okay.
He's really nice.
So I'd like to call the finance committee meeting to order. First thing we have is assignment for request for council action. We have several for finance. We have 2393 advance request, 2394 budget amendments, 2395 increased expenditure, let's make a difference, 2396 Castle Noel parking agreement extension, and 2397 purchase of a 2023 Ford F-150 truck for the Parks Department. First item we have is 2331, the Helos project for Champion Creek Multi-Purpose Trail. Mr. Worley?
Thank you, Mr. President. Last meeting, we had talked about the project and just kind of gave some updates on some things that we were working through. We were trying to figure out our security system for the cameras. And I wanted to provide an update on that, and then Mr. Johns is here. I was hoping maybe he could share with you some of the progress that he's made on the project so you can see that we're trending in the right direction here. So with respect to what Mr. Johns had asked the city to potentially fund, the cameras are going to be about $4,236. And then we have to have switches to get that back to City Hall here, and internet. I spoke with Dave Clardy, went to the house with Justin from our IT department, figured out a plan to get internet in there in a box so we can make everything work as it does in our other off-site locations to get back to City Hall. So the cost we're looking at to get it installed and for the initial year of internet is about $6,200, give or take. And then ongoing costs, we're going to be looking at about $1,500 a year for the license and utilities moving forward for the camera system out at South Broadway.
So when you say we're looking at that, I mean, I guess your department's looking at that, so are you able to afford that? I mean, I guess we're trying to figure out, do you have a suggestion of where funding's coming from?
I don't. We keep adding these systems, and typically the equipment comes out of the IT fund, but then we're responsible for each department that has cameras is responsible for paying the internet. In this case, South Broadway would fall under the Parks Department, and then the licensing for the camera and the support would also fall on the department.
So that's $1,500 a year going forward, then, you're talking about, that would be an
Correct.
additional thing. And I don't know, I mean, well, we know your budget pretty well too, but I think Carry Forward might be able to cover that. I mean, it's not a huge expense, but it is an expense that's going to take away from something else.
Correct.
So I guess everybody's got to understand that. Paul?
What about ongoing maintenance of the displays themselves?
I think that would be beneficial for Larry to talk about. He's got some things to share as well. And if you recall from the public properties meeting, he did establish a 501c3 for the project. So,
I didn't attend that, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah. Larry, do you want to talk for a little bit?
Yeah, Larry, in the back microphone there, you can go to the microphone so we can get you on TV and on the.
For the council members, the advantage of the 501c3 is then the foundations we have in town are able to donate, whereas without a 501c3, they can't. So that was the problem we ran into initially.
And would that be the donation for, well, he's going to talk about it, ongoing maintenance and the operation of the internet for each year, or we don't know that yet?
Well, we can request whatever of the foundations, but we just have to put the numbers together and make a request and see where it falls out.
Sure, thanks. Okay, Larry?
Okay, first of all, a project update, just very brief. The sun is actually finished and will be shipping this week. That's the big sphere. Oh, there it is. Okay.
I was
didn't know
gonna
you
say,
had it. All right,
picture of it.
cool.
Oh, wow.
So that's probably maybe a little over 6 feet tall. So it's actually bigger than it looks there. We've also I brought the wax Galaxy sculptures up to a place in Cleveland to have them cast in metal. As far as maintenance goes, it's probably a good time to add. Some of the things I'm actually buying 2 of the same thing in case one were to get damaged somehow. So like in the, not, well, maybe not in the case of that, because that's quite expensive, but for the galaxies, I'm actually getting 2 of each. For some of the planets, I'm getting 2 of each. Same thing with some of the granite and so on. I'm getting multiple copies so that if, at least if one were to get damaged, we'd have an immediate replacement. I've got, let's see, some of this, all the signage verbiage is done. I'll turn it all into the city before we actually get them all printed, just so that it can be reviewed if anyone would like to do that. And let's see, I've ordered some of the other mounting legend plates and things like that have already been ordered and received. We did the deposit for the large patio that goes around this sun area. It's like a 20-foot diameter circle with paver sidewalks going up to it. We've done a $10,000 deposit to get all that paver stone ordered. So, and I realize this is not an approved project yet, so I wanted to get it done this summer, though, should it be approved. So we went ahead and started ordering things with the thought in mind that if Medina turns it down for some reason, we'd find a different location and continue to pursue it. That's just a brief update, I guess.
Well, I guess the question is, following up on the mayor's comment about the 501c3 and the monies being donated to that entity, of course, will be tax deductible. Would that just be used for the maintenance of it, or would some of it could be used to pay for the security and protection of it? I guess, I don't know what the 501c3, what the parameters are, what the, when you applied for the 501c3 status of what you could use those funds for.
It can be used ongoing for maintenance and so forth. That wasn't the original, the original budget was just so that at least everything my wife and I donate is tax deductible, but we're putting $65,000 of our own money in, so I was
Right.
hoping the city would kick in some.
Yeah, no, I guess going forward, there might be some groups that might be very interested in keeping this going, or maybe even expanding it and going through the 501c3 organization. They may use that as the vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
And they're gonna want, maybe they would want more cameras. I don't know what they would want, but I'm just trying to see
So
if
in the
there's an
setup on
opportunity to look at
this,
that.
is the city, is this a donation to the city where we own it then? Because if it's not, if we own it, then there probably doesn't need to be too much formality other than the donation.
Right, I
But
think
if we
that's-
don't own it, then there would probably need to be some long-term contract with whoever. the
My
owner
understanding is we donate it at a city council meeting if it gets through this phase.
Right, it's a donation, but the 501c3 set up for the monetary amounts being donated into that. Because if you donate it to the city, you still get a tax deduction. But if
Yes.
other people donate, they might want to donate to a specific project maybe and not donate it to the city, so they get a tax deduction. I mean, I guess I don't know how that's going to work.
So if it's donated to the city, you don't even need a 501c3. We would be the 501c3, so to speak, but we are the ones responsible for maintenance.
Right, and the question is of if there is another 501c3 set up, is that specifically for this Helos project? Are you looking, because I guess Greg's right, people could donate money to the city and say, well, I just want to use this for the project and make sure my donation is allocated towards, this project only. So I'm not necessarily sure if you need to go through the process of forming a nonprofit organization and getting 501c3 status, unless you started it already.
Yeah, we already have it.
Oh,
Yeah, I think it was going to benefit you too, Larry, wasn't it? with-
Yes, and then also, this is longer term, but longer term, I envision sort of some events that we would build around this, and the 501c would help us fund some of those events.
okay, no, that's fine, I get it. Okay, I mean, I think depending on what the donations are related to, some people may want to have the donations in addition to, hopefully, keep the ongoing maintenance and security of it.
Right,
So maybe-
yeah, I agree. And
I
I think
guess-
that this could be used for that.
Right, so I think that Jansen will just have to be in contact, because we do have to find a mechanism from the city ongoing to fund it, and, though I would love to always say we're gonna use Jansen's carry for it, I'm sure he has other things planned for it, so,
Well, Mr. President,
yes.
I know that the mayor and I talked about it at one of the foundations that we sit on. They were just kind of waiting to hear back from us on what expenses, where they could maybe help. I think there was some interest, and I know the mayor sits on another foundation that he was going to bring it up there as well. And then, Larry, I wanted to let you know your daughter's kindergarten teacher and piano teacher at Northrop, she runs the K-Kids for Kiwanis at Northrop, and she really wants to be in charge of the flowers. And
Oh, okay.
She really wanted to make sure you knew that that's a service project they'd like to be involved
Oh,
in,
that's awesome. Thank you.
Mrs. McClintock, so.
Oh, yeah, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody have any questions? I think everybody still thinks this is a great project for the learning aspect throughout the city and something that'll be unique for the city of Medina. I guess just getting through these funding mechanisms and making a determination of how much of an obligation or how much work's gonna be involved, and hopefully there won't be as much vandalism to it, but you never know, to keep the project moving forward. Right?
I do have one more question. Is the city going to participate in the installation with city personnel, or how's that going to work? Or or does this have to be designed or installed by the company that's providing the displays?
Jansen and I had talked, I'm hoping that the city would do the concrete pedestal foundations where each of the planets is mounted. Other than that, there's not much that would be needed from the city, like all the landscaping is already funded by this 501c3.
Okay.
And all the signs will be installed by the sign company and so forth. So there's not, I think it's just really the foundations for the planets, those concrete mounts.
And I didn't
That's
know
it.
if that had to be city, or if you were looking at even, like I mentioned before, Eagle Scout projects, if somebody wants
you
to
go,
help in
Mm-hmm.
that, to have a project. I don't know if that's been discussed or if there's been any interest in that.
We have heard from a couple Boy Scout troops that are, or scout troops that are interested in Eagle Scout projects. We haven't got that far along yet.
Okay.
But I'm fairly confident someone from one of those groups will be interested in the project. It's only 13 footers that need to be poured, so typically with Eagle Scout projects, we help with them any way we can, whether it be providing concrete, they provide the labor, something along those lines, but yeah, that won't be hard to do.
Okay, that sounds like it's workable. Anybody else have any questions?
Are we ready to move forward then?
Yeah, I think we are.
Okay, I'll make a motion then to move forward with this donation.
I'll second that, and thank you, Larry.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you. Next one we have is 23093, advance request. Is this Keith?
Yep, thank you, Mr. President. There's 3 advances here. These are advances from the general fund to the various grants funds that we pay for the projects out of, and then we'll be doing the appropriation for them in the next item.
Any questions?
Move to approve?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 23094, budget amendments. We have 23025. Keith?
As I mentioned, the big thing, money-wise, the big thing here is the advances, and then on the backside, the money to spend the money for those projects, and then when it gets spent, it'll get reimbursed and then repaid. There's also a transfer, we had talked about this last week, where the Shade Tree got hit with a lot of things they had to clean up because of the storms. We're moving some money from general administration over to contractual, over to Shade Tree to cover that. There's an increase in planning and zoning for pass-through of the Medina County's contribution, and then there's a bunch of transfers.
Any questions?
Move to approve?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next one we have is 2395, increase PO 221473. Let's Make a Difference, fiscal year 21 CDBG. Andrew?
So this is a shifting of some of our CDBG grant funds from a summer lawn mowing program that unfortunately was not able to get off the ground to Let's Make a Difference Summer Enrichment Program. So it'll be $2,126.58, and we're just shifting it to the enrichment program. Thank you.
Questions?
Move to
Mr.
approve.
Coyne? Oh, I'm sorry.
Mayor?
So there was a typo on the RCA. If you have that, the last number should be 17,126.58 instead of 17,226.
Okay.
So that per Barbara, she asked that I just mention that.
Okay.
I'll amend my motion.
I'm sorry, where do we say it's going to?
It was taken from the CDBG for the Let's Make a Difference
Yes.
program, which they were not able to fulfill the mowing. So the mowers were bought by the city for use on city projects, and the money is going back to CDBG to be reallocated for some other community program.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Jim, one more time.
Move to approve as amended.
Second?
Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Then we have 2396, Casanova Parking Agreement Extension. Andrew?
Yeah, so in 2017, we entered an agreement with Mr. Claus of Castle Noel to use the lot at the northeast corner of Court and Smith for public parking. That agreement was for 6 years. That's coming to an end on May 18th of this year. And part of that agreement was we made a lot of improvements to that lot. This is a proposal for a new agreement with Mr. Claus for 5 additional years and incorporates some items that he wanted to include in there. One was his ability to close the lot for special events, and another was to allow either party to terminate the agreement after 30 days. So it's basically kind of a month-to-month contract, as it were. It's been reviewed by our law department, and Mr. Claus is currently reviewing it himself. We've asked for the emergency clause as the current agreement ends on the 18th of May, and we'd like to get this in effect before it expires. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Coyne?
Mayor?
So, just before Board of Control, Mark Claus called me, and there is a little bit of wording that's going to have to be adjusted within the contract, because if you read 2 different provisions, they could be read to be in conflict with one another. The term versus the, I forget what the second one was now.
Termination.
The what?
Termination.
Termination, yes, sir, thank you. So anyway, I talked to Mr. Huber after Board of Control. We'll get that revised to Mr. Huber's satisfaction and Mark Claus's satisfaction, and have it ready for council, if that's okay.
Yep, thank you. Any further comments?
I'll make a motion to approve, subject to final approval of the law director
Second.
With the emergency clause.
with the emergency clause.
My second includes emergency clause.
Any further discussion or comment? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2397, purchase of a 2023 Ford F-150 XL four-wheel drive truck for the Parks Department. Jansen?
Thank you, Mr. President. This purchase is to replace a 2009 GMC truck that we identified for replacement in the 2022 budget cycle. We just took delivery on a truck that we had to move up into our cycle that we actually replaced in 2022, so we did a switch. We got 1 more year out of this 2009. We took delivery of our new F-150 last week, and I reached out to the company to see when we could get quotes for vehicles for this calendar year, because we have a need for another truck in the Parks Department and our Forestry Department. And surprisingly, I was told that they had a few trucks available that, for whatever reason, fell through with other organizations. So I asked for a quote through Sourcewell, where we've purchased a few of our other trucks recently. We have carry forward available in our vehicle line for the Parks Maintenance Department in the amount of $45,000. So requesting to move forward with this purchase. The emergency clause is requested because there's only a few on hand, and we can't, we're having such a hard time getting vehicles at all, even from Montrose Ford, where we purchase things through CUE, nothing available, nothing coming, no quotes. So we're looking to go this route and move forward with this purchase. The truck could potentially be delivered middle of this summer.
Thank you. Any questions?
Move to approve with the emergency clause?
Second, including emergency clause.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there anything else before we recess into executive session to come before finance? Okay.
If not, I'll make a motion at 6:48 PM to go into executive session for a conference with the law director of the city concerning disputes involving the city that are subject to pending or imminent court action.
Second.
To include the mayor and the law director.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Lamb,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes?
Shields,
Yes.
Coin,
Yes.
Simpson,
Yes.
Hare,
Yes.
Hazeltine.
Yes.
Motion passes.
We'll be recessing into executive session to discuss the imminent litigation, returning to finance or adjourn from finance, and taking no action on any item discussed in the executive session, and then adjourning from finance. We are in recess.